Well, hey, good morning. Welcome. My name is John. If I haven't met you guys yet, a bunch of you guys are brand new to Mission. So we're in a teaching series, a 4-week teaching series called Won't Stop Now. What is a teaching series? Well, the way that we teach at Mission is either a book from the Bible or a specific topic. I'll put those together in, kind of string them together in a series of weeks. Sometimes it's 4 weeks like this one. I think our longest one of all time was like a 20-weeker. That was a really impressive one. We really got through the Gospel of Mark. So they vary in lengths, but what we do is we really zero in on a topic or a book of the Bible. And so right now, we are zeroing in on the life story of Nehemiah. Can everyone say Nehemiah? Yeah, you guys are good. 10:45. Welcome back from spring break, by the way. Those of you with a tan, I am judging you from stage because we were here in Bloomingdale. But yes, Nehemiah, this is a series on the story, the life story of Nehemiah from the Old Testament, a 4-weeker. We are in week 3. And here's really the big idea of Nehemiah. He said yes to a vision that God planted inside of his heart. And it was a vision, not of incremental anything. It was a vision of transformation. It was a vision of transformation for his life, for the life of his community, and certainly for the city of Jerusalem. It was a vision of transformation that Nehemiah said yes to, and that's what we're looking at. What does it look like for you and I and for us as a church to say yes to God, to a vision of transformation? If you have a Bible with you, open up to Nehemiah chapter 2. We are in Nehemiah chapter 2. If you don't have a Bible with you, or you forgot it, or you haven't seen it since the early 90s, we have you covered. You can go to our church app, search in the App Store, We Are Mission, and you can eventually find the follow along section. I put some notes in there for you. I put in fill in the blanks because we're a fun church, and that's fun for some people. And then I put in hyperlinks. If I reference a book like last week, a really good book, you can actually order it from Amazon while you're sitting here at church, and we get half of a penny if you do that, and which is a really good thing. That's going to fund our building project. Okay, so Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 5 through 8. Man, this is really important. And I would just say the section we're going to read today is oftentimes missed. You usually catch on to the first part and next week, which is all about perseverance. Come back next week. But this part we usually miss. We just kind of breeze right past it, but we got to see this. We'll start in verse 5. If it pleases the king, Nehemiah writes. And so if you were here last week, which half of you were, you remember that he is in the presence of a king. Anyone remember his name? King Yeah, but we said it way more fun than that. How did we say it? King? Yes, Artaxerxes. Yes, okay, so this is Nehemiah. Why is he in the presence of King Artaxerxes, the most powerful person on planet Earth? Well, it's because Nehemiah was a cupbearer. This was his job. And so Nehemiah says, if it pleases the king, and if your servant, speaking of himself, has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city of Judah. Okay, so Judah, Jerusalem, let the king send me there where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it. If you missed last week, please go through our church app or online and watch last week's sermon. Really, really important to understand the totality of this teaching series. One of the major things we looked at is how comfort is our kryptonite. We need to say hello to fear and also goodbye to comfort. And so this is verse 5. He says, listen, I don't want to outsource this. I'm not going to send my cousin Joe. No, I'm going to go. I'm going to go. Would you send me? His cousin wasn't Joe, but, would you send me? Would you send me? Verse 6. Okay, then the king with the queen sitting beside him. So just kind of imagine like what you'd think of. And this is pretty much the picture. There is the king and there is the queen sitting beside him. Ask me, how long, the king says, how long will your journey take? When will you come back? King Artaxerxes wanted him to come back. He played a really important role in his kingdom. When are you going to come back? It pleased the king to send me. No answer, but it pleased the king to send me. So I set a time. Verse 7. This is the meat right here. I also said to him, if it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of the Trans-Euphrates so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah. And may I have a letter to Asaph. Everyone say Asaph. Asaph, keeper of the royal park. So he will give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel by the temple and for the city wall and for the residence I will occupy. And because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my request. We'll finish it right there. Last week, I said this, and I want to say it again. You can drift into a lot of things, but transformation is not one of them. You can drift into a whole bunch of things, right? You can accidentally arrive at a lot of places, but transformation is not one of them. Every single one of us in this room, we like the idea of transformation. The question is, do we have great intention? Do we have great intentionality towards this vision of life transformation? There was a show that ran for 17 years on TV. It's this show. I don't know if how many of you used to watch this show, The Biggest Loser. Show of hands. Anyone? Did any of you guys like the show? Any of you guys like the show? Yeah, I like the show. Okay, so we like the show. 17 years, pretty impressive. How did a show stay on TV for 17 years? Two reasons. The first is we are very drawn to stories of life transformation. I mean, you're sitting there watching them, like you're bawling. It's like you're eating the popcorn. They haven't eaten in 2 months. It's amazing, right? You're like, this isn't, Connie, come in here. They're so hungry. Look at them, right? So we love that. I think the second reason we love this show is because you guys remember Jillian Michaels? We loved watching her yell at people. We really did. And this is a phenomenon. I've been thinking about this. We hate being yelled at, but we are entertained when we see other people getting yelled at. Isn't this weird about you and me? All right, this is amazing. Look at her berating this poor person. This is awesome. Kids, gather around. This is terrible. All right, watch this. This is great. So I think that's the two reasons, right? But here's the thing. We watch The Greatest Loser. Every single contestant had a hope to transform, but they had a whole lot more than just a hope. There's another TV show I want to draw your attention to. This TV show, I don't know if you guys remember this. This is Extreme Makeover Home Edition. Oh, yes, this one you love. Ty Pennington, right? You have posters of him. There was a saying in this show. Does anyone remember the saying? Yeah, that's right. Man, we love this. Move that bus, right? And we would get into this. Move that bus. And the bus would move, and the family would see their home totally redone. I mean, it was amazing. Why did we love that? Well, same reasons I think we love pictures and stories of transformation. And so here's the question, both with The Biggest Loser and this. Transformation wasn't accidental. Ty Pennington, once they moved that bus, didn't stand back. He's like, I have no idea how that happened. No, they had a plan. They had a plan. Here's one of the big takeaways from today. I want you to hear this. When it comes to life transformation, hope is a great virtue, but not a great strategy. Let me read it again. I was looking for an amen. That's all right. We'll get there. When it comes to life transformation, hope is a great virtue, and it is. Hope is a great virtue, but it's not a great strategy. In fact, it's a terrible strategy. Amen. Okay, there we are, right? All of us want to hope, and we need to hope. But the question is, do you have a plan? Every contestant, they had more than hope in The Biggest Loser. They actually had a plan. Ty Pennington, they had a plan. It's called a blueprint. My question for you today is, what's your plan? Real simple. What's your plan? What's your plan? Say that with me. Yeah, what's your plan? And many conversations I'll have with you in the lobby or over cups of coffee over the next year. You're going to tell me about all kinds of hopes that you have, and I will applaud you. I will high-five you about that hope. And then my follow-up question is, what's your plan? I think we should hope to experience transformation in all kinds of ways in our life. The question is, do you have a plan? Listen, Nehemiah was not a wishful thinker. He was a strategic planner. Wait a second, that doesn't sound very Christian. We need to just trust that God is sovereign over all things and leave room for the Spirit to move. And yeah, of course, yes. But Nehemiah had a plan. Chapter 1, he sat down and he prayed, not for minutes, like me. I mean, I try to make it 5 minutes, and I'm like, there's a bird, right? It's just how I struggle. He sat down for days, and he prayed, and he planned. He's in the presence of the king. And in that moment, he's like, I have no idea what to ask him. No, he had a plan. He knew exactly what he was going to ask him. Why? He had a plan. He had a plan. Did he have a hope? Of course he had a hope, but he had more than that. The question is, do you? Do you have a plan for the life transformation that you are longing to see happen in your life? What's your plan? What's your plan? What's your plan? I want to talk to you as authentically as I possibly can about some areas of my life that have experienced transformation in the past couple years. And I want to just tell you about some of the plans that I have put in place. Now, before I do that, show of hands, how many of you love to plan? Okay, I knew this is every room. Okay, show of hands, how many of you hate to plan? Yeah, so it's usually about 50-50. Those of you in the second group, that's the way I am made. It's in my DNA. Most of my life, I would say, well, yeah, I have a plan, and it's to not have a plan. You know what I'm saying? That's my plan. It's to not have a plan. I like to move with the Spirit. I don't, I like to follow the wind. I don't know. I'm going that way, okay? So most of my life, that was my plan. It was to not have a plan. The first group that raised your hands, I want you to know this is going to be your favorite sermon in the history of church. You are a planner, and you've been waiting, right? You've been wondering because you've been thinking that you're more godly than everyone else, and now you're about to know. You are, in fact, way more Christian because you are a planner, okay? And so the second group, like me, and I'm with you, this is going to feel like discipline. What? This is going to feel like growth. I don't like growth, me either. This is what this is going to feel like, okay? What's your plan? What's your plan? What's your plan? I want to talk about 4 areas real quick in my life, and then I'll come back to Nehemiah's story. My marriage. And I want to tell you about our plan. We just finished 4 rounds of marriage counseling. It's not the first time some of you, whoever wooed marriage counseling probably hasn't gone because it's terrible. Sorry. I like the idea of it too. So we just finished 4 sessions. It's not the first time we've gone. We've actually gone quite a bit. Why? Good is the enemy of great. I didn't come up with that. I heard it from a smart person. Good is the enemy of great. We've always had a good marriage, right? We've always had a good marriage. We really have. We've always had a good marriage, but we don't want just a good marriage. We want a great marriage. And so my mentor's like, okay, what's your plan? What's your plan? What's your plan? I'm like, well, I don't have a plan. He's like, okay, then you're just going to have a good marriage. But I'm in your life, so you'll have a great marriage. What's your plan? He's like, you're going to do 4 rounds of marriage counseling. Again, I'm like, I don't want to do that. He's like, I didn't ask if you want to do it. Now, here's the thing. Kelly has always wanted to do marriage counseling. All the time. It's her hobby. Marriage counseling is her hobby. She's like, let's do marriage counseling. I'm like, let's watch the Cubs game. All right, so that's where we're at, okay? But I love her, and I want to have a great marriage. And so I've just kind of gotten onto her deal here to say, you know what? Yeah, you're right. We really need a plan. Some of you are hoping for a better marriage, and here's what I know, and I don't mean this to offend you in any way. If you don't have a plan, a year from now, you're going to still be hoping. You're going to take up my time, and we're going to have more coffee, and you're going to tell me about your marriage that is still struggling because you've yet to develop a plan. You don't have a plan. You don't have a plan, so what's your plan? Do you want a great marriage? And some of you, you don't even have a good marriage yet. You have a marriage that's on the rocks. It's not too late. It's not too late. Listen. What if you were to build a plan? So that's let me say one more thing about this. I have 2 daughters. So when they're thinking about dating boys, so I don't want them to date till they're 40. I want them to evaluate every single knucklehead that comes to my door based on me. And not what I talked about, not what I hoped for, but what they saw in action. I want my girls to say, all right, is that guy speaking to me the way that dad speaks to mom? Is that guy showing the kind of kindness that dad has showed to mom our entire lives? Not what dad gave lip service to, not what he said he hoped to be, but what he did based on his plan. So, that's just kind of my thing to prevent them from dating for a long time. It's my marriage. I have a plan, and our marriage is killing it. I want every single person in our church to have a marriage like ours. And by God's grace, I can say that. I can. I really can. I can. I want you to love your wife the way I love my wife. Ladies, I want you to love your husband and respect your husband the way that she loves and respects me. Unbelievable the way she makes me feel, the way you make me feel. It's awesome. It's awesome. And I want that for you. All right, that was a lifetime moment. Let's keep moving. Some of the guys are very uncomfortable. All right. All right, let's talk about physical health. When is the last time you heard a sermon in church on getting in shape? Answer never, because this is just interesting. Most pastors aren't in shape, so they don't preach on it. So I don't know how else to say it, okay? Yet, this is an incredibly important thing. Think about it. Like, how important is your body? Now, don't take this to where I'm not going. I'm not talking about a 6-pack. I have a 0.5 pack, okay? We're not quite to 1 yet, but we're working towards it. What I mean by being in shape is physically like working out. There's this thing called sweating on purpose. Sweat coming off your chin at least 4 days a week. We were made to be active. We were made to move. We were made to sweat. It's unbelievable how I see the world differently when I am actually taking care of my body. It is amazing how much better I feel about all of life when I stop eating so much sugar or drinking so much sugar. This is a really important thing. So what's your plan? Well, I finally have a plan. And by God's grace in the last 2 years, I'm finally feel good about how I feel. Okay? And again, I'm not like some kind of Tommy Bowman model yet. Okay? I'm working on it. And so I've been working my plan, and I've got a plan. 4 days a week, my mentor, sweat has to be dripping off my chin. That's my plan. What's your plan? My leadership. So our church, God has chosen to grow it quite a bit. And so 2 years ago, our church just started growing like that, and within a day, I didn't know how to do my job. So I'm like, okay, I don't know how to lead this kind of church. And it's only increased, which means I've only become more incompetent. So I'll know how to do my job for about 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden I don't know how to do my job anymore because I've never been here before. And so I've just had to really take a hard look at this. I can complain, right? Or I can actually build a plan to strengthen my own leadership. And this is for me. This isn't necessarily for you, but the key to my leadership is called the 5 a.m. Club. It's something I've learned, and my mentors helped me see that when I'm up at 5 a.m., my life is different. My leadership life is different. For some of you, this will end your life, okay? So I started a club, because that's what I do. And I started a 5 a.m. club, and it's been a huge success. I have 2 people part of it. I mean, it is growing like crazy, all right? So maybe it's not a 5 a.m. club. Maybe for you it's a 7 a.m. club. I don't know what it is. But if I don't win the morning, I will lose the day. I have to win the morning. I have to win the morning. When I write these sermons, if I don't write before 8 a.m., I'm just telling you, you're going to show up, and you will have wasted your time. I have to win the morning. Pray for me. Those of you, other people that are up at that time, pray for me that I'll win the morning. I'll win the morning. So here's what I'm doing. Every morning, I'm up at 5 a.m., 5 days a week, and I call at 5:10. I have a conference call with 2 other members in my 5 a.m. club. And I call them, and I say, Chaz, good morning. This is your complimentary wake-up call. Here's to winning the morning. Win the morning, win the day. So this is the plan that I'm working. This is for my leadership. My generosity. So never the same. And some of you guys don't know me, you don't know us, you're new to Mission. This is as much for me as it is for you. My parents and Kelly's parents instilled in us a level of generosity where the tithe conversation, which is usually a big conversation, it's just never been a conversation, not because we're more spiritual, it's just because we grew up this way. We just grew up this way. And so the past year of Never the Same has been you want to talk about building a plan of greater levels of generosity, that's what Never the Same has been. I even created a spreadsheet, which is big for me, okay? It's again, right? I'm learning how. I got a spreadsheet, and we can look at it, and we can be like, oh my goodness, look at what the Lord is doing through our generosity. It's a powerful thing. I have a plan. When it comes to my marriage, my physical health, my leadership, my generosity, I have a plan. The question is, do you? Now, here's the thing. I've got plans for other things, too. He didn't mention Bible reading. I got one of those, too. I got a couple of those. Right? I have a plan. Why do I have a plan? It's because I've learned in my lifetime, in the past 23 years, I'm young still, I've learned in my lifetime that I need more than a hope. I got as much hope than more people, but I need more than a hope. I need a plan. Nehemiah had a plan. The question is, do you? I want to read verse 7 and verse 8. We can see some of his plan. He says, if it pleases the king, may I have, say this with me, may I have letters. As he was praying in chapter 1, he was thinking about this plan, building his plan. He knew that he could never fulfill the vision God had for his life in Jerusalem if he died along the way. What am I saying? Here's what I'm saying. He's like, I just need some letters from these governors of some place that's important so that they will provide me safe conduct. Nehemiah, he's just saying, I got to get to Jerusalem in order to transform Jerusalem. That's all he's saying. I thought about it. I won't get there. Someone's going to kill me. So I need some letters to protect me to get to Jerusalem. He had a plan. Not only that, let's look at the next part. He said, while I'm in your presence, King, talk about making an ask. This guy's amazing. And may I have a letter to Asaph. You guys remember our buddy Asaph, Mr. A. We'll talk about Asaph here in a minute. Asaph, keeper of the royal park. I just think that's cool. We'll talk about that in a second. Keeper of, there's a royal park in the Bible. Keeper of the royal park. So what will he do? Well, he's going to give me timber. He's a timber guy. I got to have a timber guy. So Nehemiah had a timber guy. What's he going to do with it? He's going to make beams for the gates. These gates were not going to be made out of thin air. Hope could not build these gates. He actually needed something. Yeah, I got to get some beams. I need a beam guy. Of the citadel by the temple and for the city wall, got to build some walls, need timber, and for the residence I will occupy. What's he talking about? Nehemiah wanted to have staying power, and he knew that he could probably stay longer if he lived indoors. That's pretty much what it was. He ended up staying there 12 years. He wasn't going to be a flash in the pan. No, he was going to move in from the palace in Susa to Jerusalem. He needed a residence. He's saying, listen, I'm here for the long haul. And he was. He was there for 12 years before he had returned back to Susa. Here's my question. What are the gates, walls, and residences of Mission Church? This is a question I've been thinking about this week. What's our modern day equivalent, specifically for this local church? And so I'm glad you asked. I want to answer those by walking through our 5-year vision statement. Our 5-year vision, our directional statement, it's actually going to be on the wall by this Wednesday, and you'll be able to see it. I think when you come out of the bathroom, that's where most of you spend most of your time here. So you're going to see that right there. So I want to read this. This is so exciting to me. And I'm going to break it down. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to read, I think, 5 sections of it. And after I read each line, if that moves you for whatever reason, you can show that. You can show that. I mean, you don't have to, but I mean, something like a woot or a, okay, you can just do that. Let the Spirit lead. All right, here we go. Here's the first line I want to read, right? Here it is. Thousands of people in the 10 are finding and following Christ at our first permanent location. Yeah, you guys, terrible over there. Not even a clap. It's terrible. You're going to get another shot. This includes you. Every person in here right now with a pulse, every kid. There's tons of kids in our church, by the way. And we don't babysit them. They are learning on their level. That's why we say mission kids, mission kids, mission kids. You didn't grow up dropping off your kids at church, right? That's how we do it. It works better that way. Drop them off there, okay? So we're saying thousands of people. That includes every single one of us. Thousands of people. Well, what are they doing? Hanging out? Well, I mean, kind of, but they're doing more than that. They're finding and following Christ. I mean, I just want you to think about thousands of people, including you, finding and following Jesus Christ. Does that move your heart? Thinking about thousands of people with Jesus Christ at the center of their life. That should move us. And where's this going to happen? This is going to happen at our first permanent location. And here's the thing. We're here. Move that bus. Whoa, okay, so we're here. So we're here. Now we got to pay for it, and we're working on that, okay? But this is a big deal. We wrote this statement. I mean, tons of time in prayer, like more meetings than you could ever imagine working on this thing. And we wrote this when there were 600 people in our church, and we were stuck at a high school, and we had no idea of how we were going to move. And I was embarrassed seeing this on our office wall. Every day I walk in, like, there it is, because I had no idea how this is going to take place. And it's just incredible to see what God is doing. Those of you that have been giving to this church since day one, I can see some of you guys. Thank you. Over the past year, those of you that made a commitment and have been fulfilling that commitment, thank you. This would not be happening without our collective generosity. It just wouldn't. If you're new to mission, you're sitting in someone else's sacrifice. You just are. Like you wonder, does stuff cost money? Yeah, everything costs money. It's because people are faithfully giving. This is a big deal. Now, this next one I think you're really going to love. Let me read this one to you. Young families are partnering the light of the church with the heart of their family. This is exciting. This is exciting. Some of you that have followed Jesus for the majority of your life, it's because when you were young, you understood who Jesus really was. We've said before, faith is way more caught than taught. And so this is why we're not just saying the church is going to take care of all your kids. No, we're going to partner with you, parent. Parent, we actually believe your number one job, as long as your kids are with you, is to disciple them, is to actually help them grow in their faith. That's not my job. It's not my job. I will not stand accountable before Jesus Christ being accountable for discipling your kids. Nope. I'm going to be accountable for other things, like challenging you and helping you grow. This is a big deal. And this can feel like pressure, but this needs to feel like opportunity. What an amazing opportunity we have. Young families partnering the light of the church with the heart of their family. Now, some of you might wonder, how do we have such a great Mission Kids ministry? Well, we've got some great leaders, and they don't work for free. I tried that. They said no. They are actually paid. Now, this is a crazy concept. They work 50 hours a week, and they're paid. I know. Let me say it again. It's really hard to get it. They're actually paid. Well, how are they paid? You guys. Did you know that? You're funding a kids ministry. What? Yeah. So tonight, when you go to sleep, I want you to just high-five yourself and high-five God. You yourself, if you're giving at Mission Church, you are funding a dynamic kids ministry. That's where a lot of our resources are going. I'll keep going. Boomers have been unleashed to the front lines of the mission. Boomers. And this is exciting. This is exciting. Boomers, what is that? Those in the second half of their life. The church has said for a long time that you're done, and we just actually think you're not. And so we started something a couple years ago, right when we were writing this, saying Mission Legacy is the name of it. Every Thursday night, 50 to 80 of you are gathering here, which is an amazing thing. It's a really amazing thing. It's growing. You're inviting your friends. And I want you to hear, if you're in the second half of your life, we cannot imagine our church without you. We just can't. We just can't. There was a time in our church's history where we only could draw young people. And we knew that was a problem. And we didn't know what to do. And we started Mission Legacy. And God has been all over that. And our church has grown in age. The mentorships that are, there's so many things happening because of that. So Mission Legacy, this is a huge thing. This is what you are funding. How about this next one? Alpha is the talk of the town. More baptisms have come out of Alpha than anything we've ever done. We did our homework on this. The single most powerful and effective evangelistic tool on planet Earth is something called Alpha. If you're here this morning, you're like, I'm not sure where I'm at in my faith, please try Alpha. It'll start up again in August. Try Alpha, try Alpha, try Alpha. A bunch of you have, and you would say, and probably some of you were applauding, it literally has transformed your life. It's been an incredible thing. The question is, well, how do we do that? Who pays for Alpha? Answer, you do. So you don't know this, but Alpha actually costs a lot of money. So Wednesday nights, you don't know this. This is an awesome thing. I haven't told you. I should have told you. Every Wednesday night when you're going to sleep, give yourself a high five or your spouse because you just bought dinner for 100 people every Wednesday night. Yeah, it's a big deal. And here's the thing. If you just want to stop by and help yourself, you can do that. That's fine. Dan will get mad at me, but you can do that because you paid for it. You paid for it. Well, who leads it? Dan Ruda. And we have to fund his salary, right? All of this stuff. Why am I doing this? Why would I be doing this? It's because in church work, sometimes we just don't understand how things get done. And more than that, we don't know who's doing it. And I'm praying, and our team is praying, that you will feel a sense of well done from God. Those of you that are faithfully giving, and we're part of that group, I just hope you could understand what you are funding week in and week out. It's an incredible thing. It's just an incredible thing that moves me. The last part of this, partners are becoming planters, saturating their neighborhoods and networks with the love of Jesus. And this is such a big deal. We have people that are becoming partners. In step 2, a whole bunch of you right now, about 90 of you are deciding whether to become a partner. We hope that you would. We think that'd be a great decision. And not only that, to become a planter one day. We want you to do that. 108 of you become planters of Mission Church. Why do I get excited about that? It's because what we're doing right now, is not going to transform the 10. What? Yet this isn't going to transform the 10. It's part of it, but we need a strategy that will send you. That wherever your 2 feet show up, that's where the church just arrived. This is our launching strategy. We have one. We actually have a plan. It's called our growth track, aimed to launching you to fulfill this part of our 5-year vision. Here's my question. What is the timber required to resource our plan? What's the timber required to resource this 5-year directional plan? The answer is your generosity and mine. That's what it is. Your generosity and mine. Interesting, this book of Nehemiah, I've read it a number of times. I've preached on it before. I've read books that are written about Nehemiah on the book of Nehemiah. I've studied this. But I've never noticed someone until this week. His name is Asaph. Can everyone say Asaph? So we generally focus in on the incredible impact of the vision. We focus in on Jerusalem, and we read of the part where the gates are rebuilt and the walls, and you'll see next week that happens. It's an incredible thing. It's a massive win for the kingdom. It's an amazing thing, truly, and that's usually what we focus on. We focus on Nehemiah and some of his crew, and we need to give them some credit for sure. But there is one person that without his part that he played, it would have never happened. And his name is Asaph. I call him Mr. A. In fact, next time you're at Mr. A's in Roselle eating breakfast, I want you to remember this part of the story. He specializes in ham. I don't know if you've ever been to Mr. A's, that Mr. A's, but this Mr. A, Asaph, he is this man that plays a critical role. I was actually thinking of, you guys remember those bracelets, WWJD? Remember, those were huge. I had 18 of them up my arm. I'm like, you want one, you want one, you want one. But I think we should really start one, what would Asaph do? I think it's going to catch on, WWAD. What would Asaph do? What would Asaph do? I'm going to tell you what Asaph would do. If Asaph was hearing this kind of vision, he would say, all right, I'm either going to make a new commitment, a renewed commitment, or an increased commitment. That's what Asaph would do. And when we read this story, Nehemiah shows up to the timber guy named Asaph. He ran the whole park. He had access to all of the timber. And what happened in this moment is amazing. You do not see Nehemiah pull up there to Asaph and argue with him. You don't see that. You don't see Nehemiah put together a 10-week teaching series on why he needs to give him timber. You don't see that either. You don't see Nehemiah show up to Asaph with a great name for it, right? You don't see any of that. What do you see from the text? Nehemiah shows up to Asaph with nothing more than a letter. But here's the difference. The letter was endorsed by the king. So Nehemiah just slides the letter across the desk. He's like, yeah, king. Maybe you've heard of him. King Artaxerxes. He's got my back on this. And we already had this conversation because I have a plan, and he actually wants you to give me the timber. Here's my question, Mission. What if you demonstrated the same kind of obedience? Well, what if the American church demonstrated the same kind of obedience, not just to a king, but to the king of all kings? What if? Can you imagine this? This is going to go far beyond our never the same thing. That we have more than a letter. We actually have a book, 66 of them in one book called the Bible, that is full of letters from the king saying, listen, you got to understand something. You own nothing. Nothing. But you can steward everything for my name and for my glory. Mission, and this is not for those of you that are kicking the tires on who Jesus is. If you are a Christian, this is the most freeing thing you could ever imagine when you say, oh my goodness, I have received letters from God saying, open your hands to my work. The question is, will you do it? Will you do it? Next week is Commitment Sunday. We have a whole bunch of people. I've had a lot of conversations. It's awesome to hear about what God is doing in our church. Eric and Meredith are some of those people. Let's go ahead and take a look at their video now.
I'm Eric.
I'm Meredith.
And we are never the same. About a year ago, when we had the Commitment Sunday, at that point in our lives, Meredith was just going back to work from maternity leave, giving birth to our twins. We had just hired a nanny. We were paying for preschool for our daughter, house payment, car payment, all that good stuff. And
it was an uncomfortable time.
Yes, a very expensive time in our lives. So for us, that initial commitment was just our regular 10% that we were already giving, and we picked the spot on the card that fit for us.
We've made it a priority in our house that first we would give back to him, And then with what else we have left, that's what we live off of. And we consider that a biblical principle that we follow and hope to pass on to our children.
And that is transformative because it continues to force you to prioritize what's important to you in your life. For us, church is important. Faith formation in our kids is important.
Our oldest, she's excited to come to church. She really enjoys her time here. I grew up in a church where it was more of a chore to go to church, and to see her light up when we say it's time for church, or asking how many more days until Sunday.
Can I put a dress on?
Can I put a dress on? She really enjoys her time here, and that to us means that something good is happening here in the ministry, and we know that our giving to this church, to mission, is providing that for her.
To come from a family that didn't have much money, but yet always watching them give every Sunday, and us never going without a meal, or if I needed a baseball glove or a pair of cleats or new shoes, I never had to go and want or need. I felt like everything was met. And as an adult, I look back and go, how did they do it? But I realize now that everything always got met because my parents were faithful, and their example changed a generation. It wanted me to now pass it on to my family, and hopefully our kids pass it on to their family, that everything costs money at a church. To turn the lights on costs money. Run the water costs money. So to be a part of that and be able to contribute to that is just something my family has always done. That faithfulness is consistently rewarded. As God blessed us, we continue to increase our giving back at the same 10% rate. And now we've hit a point where 1 year in, we are ahead of our initial commitment. And so when we look at turning in our commitment card next week, we need to not only take a look at our initial commitment, but then add on what we've been doing and continue at that same rate, which is going to allow us to go above and beyond our initial commitment.
Let's thank them for sharing their story. Love it. Nehemiah had a plan for transformation. The question is, do we? I want you guys to stand up to your feet, and I want to read to you how this passage ends. This is how we're going to close our services today. This is so important. We need more than hope. And I want you to apply this to every single aspect of your life, and I want to be as clear as I possibly can. Next Sunday, Commitment Sunday, is you saying yes to a plan of ongoing or starting or increased generosity. That's what the commitment card is. That's what it is. It is a plan. It is a plan. It is a plan. We need more than hope. We need a plan. This is how it finishes up. And because the gracious hand of my God was on me, Nehemiah writes. He says, you got to understand, this wasn't Nehemiah coming up with Nehemiah's plan and saying, God, now I hope that you'll bless my plan. No, this was Nehemiah talking with God, developing the plan, but even on that, he's saying, God blessed it. He was all over it. And because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my request. And so, God, I thank you. God, I thank you for the people of Mission Church. God, I thank you for the men and women, the kids, the students. Thank you for our college students. We love them so much. God, thank you for them. God, we thank you for the millennials in our church. We thank you for the young families. God, we thank you. God, we thank you for those in the second half of their life that fill up our church. God, I thank you for every age and stage that calls Mission their home. And God, what I'm asking for through the power of your Holy Spirit is that you would speak to us. And that as a church, we'll have more than a hope. We'll have a plan. A plan that will cause us to look more and more like your son, Jesus. God, we want to be transformed, 100% of us. And so, God, we ask that you use next Sunday toward that end, Commitment Sunday, that it would be a commitment to transformation. And God, we are trusting and we are expectant to have just an awesome response to see that your hand is certainly upon us. We love you, God, and we pray this in the matchless and powerful name of Jesus, and all God's people agreed and said, amen. We'll see you guys next week. We are Mission.